दलाल और भड़वे की तरह बात मत करो, बात करनी है पत्रकार की तरह बात करो,
भाषा की मर्यादा रखिए। मैं आपसे बड़ी बहुत दायरे में बात कर रहा हूं, पार्लियामेंट्री लैंग्वेज में बात कर रहा हूं,
आदमी से बात नहीं कर रहे हो। नो माय डियर फ्रेंड, मैं तुम्हें भड़वा कहता हूं, दलाल कहता हूं, और बताओ
ये मुझे आपत्ति है।
मैंने बात कंप्लीट नहीं की, मैंने कितना
कम से कम मर्यादा रखिए सर, कम से कम मर्यादा रखिए, थोड़ी मर्यादा रखिए। अगर पलट के मैं आपको 4 शब्द बोल दूं तो कैसा लगेगा? मैं नहीं बोलूंगा। आप उन शब्दों के बारे में क्या कहते हैं? आप उन शब्दों के बारे में क्या कहते हैं राजीव जी?
मैं जवाब,
ये डिबेट आगे नहीं बढ़ेगी, उन शब्दों के बिना आगे नहीं बढ़ेगी डिबेट। राजीव त्यागी, टुनाइट आई एम क्लियर, शब्द पर आपको खेद है?
बिल्कुल भी। आपके प्रति जो मैंने 2 शब्द इस्तेमाल किए हैं, अगर आप मुझे मजबूर करेंगे तो मैं दोबारा इस्तेमाल
करूंगा। चलिए सर, फिर थैंक यू सर।
This legendary video had many consequences. It made people cheer for a Congress spokesperson. It forever transformed the name of the host and the victim here from Amish Devgan to Amish B&D Devgan. It brought us a few good memes. But the biggest consequence was that most people celebrated the abuser instead of sympathizing with the abused, which tells you a lot about the public sentiment towards the abused. Imagine if you invite someone over for a party and they start abusing you for serving cold, gluten-free samosas and warm, non-alcoholic beer. Well, bitch moves like that deserve abuse. Sadly for Tyagi, participating in heated debates was his job.
अरे टीका लगाने से कोई सच्चा हिंदू नहीं बन जाता है। टीका लगाना है ना, दिल में लगा टीका, दिल में लगा टीका, और कहे और कहो किसने घर चलाया है। हिम्मत है तो कहो किसने घर चलाया। जय चंदो मुंह से नाम नहीं निकल रहा है।
And this is what happened moments after that debate.
कांग्रेस के राष्ट्रीय प्रवक्ता राजीव त्यागी को एक राष्ट्रीय चैनल की बहस के दौरान दिल का दौरा पड़ गया और गाजियाबाद के अस्पताल में उन्होंने दम तोड़ दिया।
These two Rajiv Tyagi incidents, 2 years apart, pretty much sum up the current state of the Indian TV news media. Loud, sensationalist, biased, slanderous, divisive, lacking substance, hilarious, sure, but also a sad spectacle. Pretty much like a sad clown. Sadder. There we go. The state of mainstream news media in India is being discussed far beyond the boundaries of our great nation.
We did a story about India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which some die-hard Modi supporters like Arnab Goswami, the Tucker Carlson of India, did not enjoy.
When Firangis start commenting on the credibility of our news media, you know things have gone down the toilet and there's no Prem Katha brewing.
Is India's media facing a credibility crisis? Let's take a look.
The competition for viewers has an intensity like nowhere else. Many anchors feel the need to shout louder, more radically, just to be heard, seen, and clicked upon.
Will a lack of media freedom lead to the death of democracy in India?
This is just like worse than a Comedy Central roast.
I'll read out everything tonight. Let's go to Rajshekharan first.
You liar!
It's just chaos. I don't even know what they're talking about. Is this news?
This guy is acting how like we all did in first grade, where like someone else is talking and you don't like their argument, so you're like, you like talk over them.
A pointed, formal criticism of India's TV news media by Turkish and Qatari public broadcast service can always be brushed aside as politically motivated hit pieces by state-owned foreign media. But when a random American teenager, who I'm sure won't know the difference between a West Indian and a West Indian, is making fun of us in her Californian accent.
बुरा लगता है भाई, आप लोग भी जानते हो, दिल से लगता है भाई.
You know how as Indians love the validation of Americans to make ourselves feel better. India's news landscape is unique. There are almost 400 channels in 22 official languages that operate 24/7. And this kind of competition can make people desperate, aggressive, and you eventually lose perspective of who you are, what you stand for, and why you became a journalist in the first place. The problem with our mainstream media is two-pronged. One is that most channels have a lack of moral or ethical compass with a strong bias towards a view that is nationalistic. The other is that they are a circus gone wild, where everyone acts like they're in a group discussion for the last job at an engineering college. While most countries have a section of the media which has the first problem, there is no other major country that has news channels at prime time competing with Saas Bahu shows for who can shame us more and set our society back further. Pre-1991, we only had one channel, Doordarshan, the public service broadcaster. Back when changing to a news channel didn't require turning down the volume. In fact, let's do a decibel level graph comparison of news debates back in the days versus now, shall we?
And I would also like to say that there is a provision in the Income Tax Act which says
आर्थिक नीति के बारे में कहना चाहेंगे क्या पायलट जी?
जैसे मैंने कहा नंदी 2 बार
खड़े होकर फौरन यहाँ से चले जाइए. You have to behave properly, Ilyas Sarpudi.
Let's be very clear that what we are discussing here is the possibility of the formation of the future government.
लद्दाख में चुप कर आप कोशिश कर रहे धरती मां है सब देशवासियों की धरती है.
Here are a few observations from debates back in the day. People were civil to each other. Nobody called anyone a or a dalal. No jarring graphics or obtrusive ads. And Shekhar Gupta has looked 60 since he was 30. How the did we get to this point? Two reasons. NDTV and the economic reforms of 1991.
What?
NDTV and the economic reforms of 1991.
Okay!
Prannoy Roy's The World This Week and The News Tonight ignored the government's news bulletin format and changed the way news was presented to the public. Meanwhile, the 91 reforms liberalized access to communication technology and allowed private players and foreign players entry into Indian television. Putting two and two together led to the launch of Star News Channel, India's first 24/7 private news channel with NDTV making content for Rupert Murdoch's Star Network. Some argue that Rupert Murdoch and his brand of masala news is what led to the shit show we have today. News kept evolving as a popular medium. More and more clowns became interested in the circus. Channels were launched seemingly every other day, and before you knew it, we had a garbage pile of over 400 channels in 22 languages. It's ironic that NDTV, which is a pioneer in news broadcasting, the only channel that at least pretends to be a proper news channel, has been left behind by some of the younger, louder kids who don't mind cheating in the exams for a better grade. NDTV is the kid who sits in the middle row and takes a B- with grace, while the rest of the class seems to have access to the leaked exam paper. But they seem to be having their own problems.
आप रहिएगा होशियार. सन्नाटे को चीरती सनसनी फिर देगी दस्तक आपकी दहलीज पर.
The news coverage this past year was one of the worst in the short history of Indian television news. It just seemed more pathetic than usual. Why were they so desperate? Because during the COVID lockdown, even though news viewership rose, news revenue saw a drop of 30 to 50% because advertisers did not want to spend a lot of money during the pandemic because consumers weren't spending a lot of money. So the usually tough competition became way tougher. This meant the already low standards got way lower in both quality and ethics. How did something as noble as delivering information to the masses become a commodity? The answer is the reason behind most evil in this world. Post-liberalization of the economy, the urban middle class in India began to grow and became more and more consumeristic and aspirational, which made them targets for advertisers. News channels became a great place to advertise. Unfortunately, when you're in the TV business, you're not just competing with other news channels. Primetime news also competes with these clowns.
चिल्ला रहे
बापा बोला नहीं,
चिल्लाओ नहीं,
बापा बोला नहीं। बिग बॉस जरा आप इसको कंट्रोल करेंगे, मुझे बदतमीजी पसंद नहीं है जिस तरीके की ज़बानें इस्तेमाल करी जा रही हैं यहाँ पर।
The quest for advertising revenue led to a race for ratings, and the number of channels went up from 1 in 1991 to 400 in 2020. And quantity did not translate to quality. TV channels basically make their money two ways: advertising and subscription. Overall TV ad revenue for 2019 was about 32,000 crores. News accounted for 11% of the overall TV revenue but ran 32% of the total ads on TV. Compare that to general entertainment channels, which accounted for 55% of the overall TV revenue but only ran 25% of the ads. What does that mean? Well, it means that news channels need to get a lot more advertisers to make a lot less money. It's a volume business and the competition is intense. Now to the subscription part. TRAI, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, has set maximum retail prices for news channels and the MRP ranges from 3 rupees per channel to as low as "अबे free में देख लो यार, हम तो ad चला लेंगे." As a result, subscription contribution to the overall revenue is decreasing. So what you pay for cable and dish is not enough to make a profit. These poor have no choice but to act disgracefully. They're a victim of circumstances. They actually went to court and said, "We don't earn money from the consumers, so we're going to continue with this kind of news." Not kidding. Eventually, the only way to increase TRPs was to make news sexier and go after the mass audience. Here are some of the key tactics used by the news channels to reach out to the mass audience. Breaking news. If it's not worth breaking, it's not worth reporting. Provocative titles.
मोदी करेंगे पाकिस्तान का सर्वनाश, ये पीओके वापस दे दे इमरान, जब तक तोड़ेंगे नहीं तब तक छोड़ेंगे नहीं, ज्यादा ना उड़ो चीन, खिसक न जाए जमीन, विपक्ष बोले जंगल राज, अब तो जागिए महाराज.
Talking heads. Depending on the severity, it varies from 4 to 8 to infinity, and these people want to win the debate at any cost. Invasion of privacy. They follow the golden rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Or do whatever the unto others. If they do the same, get them banned from all airlines. Taking sides. Hero versus villain. There is no centrism, no nuance. You have to take a side. Be it India versus every other country, left versus right, Rihanna versus democracy, SR versus Bollywood. Judge, jury, executioner. Court is in session and the dishonorable anchor sits there as the judge, jury and executioner, and we all know which side he or she is leaning. Right? Right. If Bollywood, Tollywood, Collywood, Sandalwood, Mollywood and any other wood standing erect in this country has taught us anything, it's that if you want to reach a mass audience, you need a leading man. Because when you have a popular leading man, nothing else matters. And that led to the dawn of the newsman, the face of the channel. Person who crosses their arms and turns to the camera at a 45-degree angle because the PR lady said it makes them look trustworthy. Someone who comes on at prime time and tells the people not about the facts behind a global pandemic, struggling economy, a migrant crisis, unemployment, healthcare, public infrastructure, but spends all of prime time talking about the death of a young Bollywood star and how it is all tied to a gold-digging actress girlfriend, a nepotism cartel that controls Bollywood, a drug mafia that has stars intoxicated, corrupt politicians in one state, assembly elections in another state, and ultimately a system determined to keep the truth hidden and the outsider out. Well, this seems like the plot concocted by a deranged pothead in his basement, but sadly plays out on national TV during prime time in the world's largest democracy. It's very clear that the newsman is someone who tells the people what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. These were the faces of the channel. The women were graceful and soft-spoken, and the men came in all varieties of facial hair. Now it's a popularity contest to determine who can look at the camera with the meanest stare. The meaner the stare, the more you care for the truth.
Sir, ये एकदम intense look sir. बीवी sex नहीं करने दे रही वाला look. सर स्माइल मत करो सर, इंटेंस सर, और इंटेंस सर. सर बीवी सेक्स नहीं करने दे रही है. कट कट पैकअप पैकअप.
The leading man of all leading men, the loudest Shehnai in the Bharat, the Rakhi Sawant of all opinionated item girls, the only man who can be heard even on mute, the OG, the one and only.
नमस्कार दोस्तों, मैं हूं अर्नब गोस्वामी.
When you think loud, abusive, biased, partisan, divisive, nationalistic, you can think of all these clowns. But there's something about AG. He's got the it factor. He doesn't give a if he breaks all rules of journalism and loses all credibility as long as he gets those TRPs. He's the quintessential leading man. He doesn't give a about critical acclaim. He only cares about commercial success.
मेरे को कुछ समझ नहीं आया.
अरे चुप, एक मिनट मेरी बात सुनो. आवाज कम. आवाज कम. आवाज कम. अरे तुम इमली बेच रहे हो क्या? चौराहे में खड़े होकर जो इतना जोर से चिल्ला रहे हो.
आराम से सुनिए ना, आराम से बोलिए ना, आराम से सच्चाई बताइए.
Never ever. Ever.
कई मामले ऐसे होते हैं ना कि चिल्लम चिल्ली करके कुछ नहीं होता. चीख चीख कर चिल्लाऊंगा. सुनिए ना राजपूत, आज मेरे बोलने का मौका आ गया. मेरे बोलने, मैं तो आपकी बात सुनने वाला नहीं हूँ.
अरे भाई, हम सुनने वाले लोग नहीं हैं. You don't be immature on my show. Immature.
अरे गिलानी के चमचे, अरे बाजवा के चाटुकार, अरे रावलपिंडी के हलवाई, मेरी बात सुन ले. अरे इस्लामाबाद के बुझाए हुए फूल, मेरी बात सुन लो. ज्यादा करोगे ना, छोले बना दूंगा आपकी.
AG crafted his style at the Times Now newsroom, where he started off as Goku before moving on to Republic, where he became Super Saiyan. His fans see him as Tara Singh meets ACP Pradyuman meets Shaktiman, one who solves cases at 9 p.m. every day from the comfort of his desk and then acts as your moral science teacher who tells you what to do and what not to do. A no-nonsense patriot who takes no bullshit from any country. A messiah who looks out for the interests of the middle class, an incorruptible seeker of justice and truth. A total badass who paid off the evaluator to get himself an A+. He makes his own rules, breaks them as per his convenience. His opinions flip-flop constantly. He's a hypocrite, but it doesn't matter since he's a patriot.
तो वो सलमान जो इतना बोलता था ना.
Each time speaking to you is an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm a total fan.
कहाँ है? कहाँ छिपा हुआ है? ड्रग्स माफिया के बारे में एक आवाज क्यों नहीं उसकी?
You've been bajaying a lot of people, I see.
Bajawing?
बिग बॉस के डायलॉग दिए जाएंगे हाथ में, कोई लिखेगा तो फिर उसको पढ़ोगे रट्टा मार के.
What we don't like is hypocrisy. What we don't like is U-turns.
देश में मोदी जी, प्रदेश में योगी जी.
ये योगी आदित्यनाथ तो ऐसे व्यक्ति है, उनको धर्म के बारे में तो कुछ पता ही नहीं है और हिस्ट्री के बारे में और भी कुछ कम पता है.
अभी आपकी पोजीशनिंग जो है वो है डेवलपमेंट ओरिएंटेड चीफ मिनिस्टर.
योगी आदित्यनाथ ऐसे अनपढ़ व्यक्ति हैं.
I'd like to congratulate you on your 100 days in governance.
Thank you.
You've had a very, very good track record.
Somebody should tell Yogi Adityanath to get, his mental balance checked. क्या कह रहे हैं आजकल?
Thank you.
What we don't like is hypocrisy. What we don't like is U-turns.
The haters will say AG is the murderer responsible for the death of journalism in the country. Well, the haters. AG is such a pioneer that every news channel tried to emulate his style by deploying a version of him on prime time. In a largely polarized country, there is no room for nuance and centrism. Everyone must belong to a team and they get judged based on their team. You're either a Librandu or a Chodi, a liberal elite or a conservative nutjob, a liberal cuck or an alt-right fundamentalist. You're either in the Godi media or the Lutyens media. The final step in going mass is the realization that you can't please everyone in the audience. So you try to consolidate your share of the pie by becoming openly partisan and picking a side. The side that's willing to watch you, and preferably the side that is winning. Another important incentive to pick the right side is government ad money. The largest advertiser on news channels is the government. The third largest is political parties. Based on this information, what do you think makes the most sense for news channels to be? Going against the government is like trying to tell your boss f*** off. You think you can do that? I know you want to, but you won't. These guys won't either. You might not think the news affects you, but BBC disagrees with you. No. This BBC. They cite research to prove that news affects everything we do, from our attitude towards immigrants to the content of our dreams, from our foreign policy to our economic policy. It can even increase our chances of having a heart attack. According to a few foreign intellectuals,
Fielding Wellingtonsworth? Hello. Livingston Winsterford? Yes. Amelia Bedford Furthington Chesterhill?
Good day.
actually it was these two gentlemen. Our perception of reality is not just influenced by what's happening around us, but also by what the media says is happening around us. That's a lot of power, and everyone wants a piece of that power, whether you're a news editor, a politician, or a businessman. Usually it's all three working together, trading money and power. TV comes out on top as the best way for agenda setting and manipulating the message. Why? Because 82% of India watches TV together. You get to influence the grandpa, the dad, and the grandkid at the same time. News influences the young, impressionable minds of kids. Young kids aged 2 to 8 and even older kids aged 9 to 14 watch more news than they watch music or even sports, mainly because news is on all the time. It's a choice. Do we want the kids to watch this?
Shit, ये क्या है?
What is this nonsense?
ये इसकी सूसू
पेशाब है
Or this?
अरे तू क्या मारेगी मुझे? अरे तू क्या मारेगी? ये हाथ
Because this is not on all the time. TV influences people. TV news influences people. If an idiot in a suit tells them something is true, no matter how far away from the truth it is, they will believe it as true. They share it with their friends on WhatsApp. They post it on their FB groups. They post it on Twitter with a creative but divisive hashtag, which gets amplified by competent IT cells. And we all know how inconsequential social media is. Listen, it's not all bad. At least it's not this.
Why are you gay? You are gay. You are a transgender. Lesbian? Homosexual? How can I describe you? Why should someone be gay? Do you perform the natural obligations?
Can you give me a minute? Do you recognize some of these things here?
The news media has done a few decent things. Here are some that come to mind. The media can get the system moving when it has stalled. The media can hold the government accountable, at least when it wants to. Not just the government, the media can also hold rich, powerful people accountable, as long as they're not invested in their channels. The media can galvanize the people for a cause. I'm sure there are more, but I can't think of them at this moment. For more on this, let's borrow from a 5th standard student's notes on the advantages of news media. Thank you, Ashwin from Coimbatore. English and Hindi are only a part of the much bigger pie of Indian television news. Regional news accounts for majority of the viewership in the top states. South alone accounts for almost half of news viewership, and they watch news in their own language. As seen here, Telugu, Kannada, Tamil, Malayalam, Marathi, Bangla, Gujarati are all bigger than English in terms of viewership. And despite what you might have heard, these three are all different languages in the South. South apparently is not a language.
What?
South apparently is not a language.
Okay!
Anyway, if you think these regional news are any better, I've got good news for you. India is more alike than you think.
நம்ம விவாதத்தை
चुप रहे
तू कुत्ता तू पांचो
There's no easy solution to this problem, mostly because people who watch the news don't even see it as a problem. They're a part of the problem. The news reinforces a lot of their beliefs and ideas while also entertaining them. It's confirmation bias with a twist of slapstick comedy. According to research agency Ipsos, 78% of Indians get their news from the TV daily, and 71% of them trust the news they get on TV. This is more than any other major economy in the world. Basically, we're eating shit every day and loving the taste, believing it meets all our macronutrient requirements. The media knows that as long as people are fed what they want to eat, no one cares, and they use it to their advantage. News TV in India is self-regulated, so it's difficult to hold any single channel to account. Last year, National Broadcasting Standard Association, a self-regulatory group made up of representatives from Indian channels, asked Republic TV to air an apology for an ethics violation. So what did Arnab do? He said, "You," and created a new self-regulatory board and made himself the head. This is what badasses do, you fools. They don't bend over, they take over. Everything is done on the inside. Even BARC, which is an agency in charge of measuring TV ratings, consists of broadcasters, advertising agencies, and advertisers. In a board of 8 people, you have 2 who spend all the money and 6 who want all that money. That's fair, right? It's like a rich old guy, his bitch wife, and the spoiled kids. And this is what happens when you're in a dysfunctional family. A brags about beating B, B brags about beating A, both get caught and accuse each other of cheating. Unfortunately, if you want to remain a person of principles, TV news is not the place for you. So don't be surprised if anyone worth listening to ends up leaving television and starts their own thing online. Some might even become professors at Harvard. How do we fix mainstream TV news? One way is to have an independent regulatory authority like every other industry. Then you can actually penalize and punish the likes of Republic, and they in turn have to fix themselves instead of saying, "Tu kaun hota hai bolne wala bhos." But that would require the government to step in, and why would they kill the goose with the golden egg? That's where the old man, the advertiser, must step up. He needs to grow a pair of balls and confront his wife and kids. Hey old man, we all know you don't watch the channels you advertise in. You just look at the TRPs. I understand, you're a busy guy. But hey, look beyond the TRPs and think of the harm these channels are doing to our society. Grow a conscience and tell these news channels you won't advertise there until there is an independent regulatory authority that they are all answerable to. If you can do it with Facebook, you can do it with India TV, for God's sake. The last option is to say ignorance is bliss, because people who watch the news don't want to fix the news. The people who want the news fixed don't watch the news anyway, so none of us have to care. It. Sure, but fair warning, such an option comes with a price, so let's choose wisely.